personality is a predictor of your motivation, your ability, and your perception surrounding your role, which go along with the situation to predict your behavior and performance in the workplace. Now we're interested in another facet, another factor, which is that of values. And values, unlike personality kind of helps us describe who you are as a person and what you're all about, what your profile is like. Values tell us something that is more evaluative, something that tells us about what you deem to be good and what you deem to be bad, what you appreciate, what you don't appreciate, what you give a thumbs up to, what you give a thumbs down to in life. Okay? So that's what we're concerned with when it comes to values. Okay? We're making those evaluations about what is good and what is bad for people, perhaps. Okay? It tells us something, or it guides us surrounding how we should behave. It motivates us to behave in a certain way. Okay? So if I value well-being and health and healthy communities, I may be more likely to behave in certain ways that are more sustainable, let's say. Okay? So that's how values work. Unlike personality that just kind of describe who you are as a person, there's more of an evaluation there. Okay? So that is one key characteristic of values. Values, unlike personality, also they are more so derived from nurture, from how you're raised, the different experiences you have in life. It's not something that is kind of genetic. A value is more so developed as you go further in life and as you engage in different situations and involve yourself in different experiences. In terms of how we map out values, or how we go about understanding what values look like within people or among people, we generally have 4 key categories, okay, where we map them out across 4 facets. And those are values pertaining to openness to change, values pertaining to conservation, values pertaining to self-enhancement, and then the very last one, self-transcendence. Okay? And values of openness to change, that's when you're someone who places great priority, or you really show a knack towards, or you drift towards situations that are always different. You like rigor in what you do. You like to be dabbling with something new and learning something new all the time. So when you say you value openness to difference, you value differences in people or among people, you value diversity. You're someone who is more adept to dealing with rigor. You love something that is not necessarily static. So that's why we see things like stimulation. When you're open to change, or when you value change, you are someone who always wants to be stimulated. You want to be dealing with something that is always energizing you, always motivating you, always driving you. Okay? On the opposite side of it, okay, we have values pertaining to conservation. And that's when we're dealing with kind of that element of stability. Okay? You like some level of security. You like some level of conformity. Right? And again, you don't have to be kind of fully on one side of it. Right? Some of us like certain levels of stability in certain facets of life, okay? And then you get your stimulation from other facets, okay? So I like to work in a job that involves a lot of travel. I'm always on the road. I'm always dealing with new projects. But I also want to raise a family, and I want to derive some stability from that, okay? So you could kind of go about appreciating both and being able to potentially fulfill both, right? And still be within the same person, right? You don't have to be on one extreme. And then the other side, or the other facets that we're concerned with when it comes to values, are those of self-enhancement and self-transcendence. Okay? So self-enhancement, that kind of pertains to things like achievement, right? You're a go-getter, you value kind of accomplishments, you're interested in always going up the corporate ladder, you want to achieve a lot of things, you want to always be improving in your job, okay? So you're focused on yourself. Okay, that's self-enhancement, just from the name of it. You're focused kind of internally, you're focused on what you accomplish as a person. The opposite side of it is self-transcendence. In that, here we're starting to delve into, are you someone who just cares about yourself? Or do you also, show some regard to other people or communities beyond you? Okay? So do your interests or do your values transcend beyond yourself, right? Or are you just solely focused on the you experience. Okay? So that's why self-transcendence is all about being motivated to help others, to promote the welfare and the well-being of others. Okay? So, and again, it could be a mix of both. You don't have to be on one end of the spectrum. Okay? So it could be a variety of things, and your values could be a function of a lot of things. And that's why values sometimes could be conflicting, right? Because even though you might be all about welfare and you really want communities to do well, but you're also looking out for yourself. So that's why values sometimes we say could be conflicting, because values are very abstract, they're very general, and they're very broad. They give us some sort of idea as to what we appreciate in life and in society, but it doesn't mean that we're always going to be acting in one way or in one direction. Okay? Sometimes values are just kind of like a whole squiggly thing where they're coming at each other from all sorts of directions. Okay? Questions about the different facets or the things that motivate us as rooted in values? Some ways that values actually kind of come to be, or how they manifest, or how they actually go about influencing our behavior. One mechanism that they opt for, or one mechanism that they influence, is how we consider the different choices that we have in life or that are presented at us, right? So based on your values, you will see different options, or you will assess different options differently, okay? So some options may be very attractive to you when you value social welfare. You might vote for a certain person because that person aligns with your values surrounding helping others, right? Whereas somebody else, another candidate, may not appeal to you because of that. Okay? So it really does predict how you perceive what options are, how you perceive the different options that are presented to you, and which option aligns better with your personal values.
Sorry, are these values as in values what make you a better human being, or your values like your traditions?
These are values in terms, so traditions kind of could relate to it, okay? In that you may derive your values from some traditions that you have within your culture, within your family. It could inform your values, right? But more so, values, I'd say it's the broader category of what do you appreciate? What do you think is good? What do you think is bad? What guides you? Okay? So it's linked to traditions. Tradition could inform your values, but there's a bit of a distinction. Okay? So apart from informing you, or apart from telling you a bit more about, or helping you with assessing alternatives, values also help frame your perceptions in that they dictate how you view reality. Okay? So how you make sense of the world and how you understand the different things that are going on in the world, that could also be rooted in your values and what you appreciate. It is a bit of a bias in that if you're someone who values something, you will see the world in a certain way, and if you value something else, you will see the world in a different way. So they do dictate how we go about maneuvering our life and how we maneuver our general way of being. And also, values dictate our behavior or determine our behavior because we are always motivated to act in ways that align with how we define ourselves. And most of the time, we try to act in ways that align with our values. So we derive a sense of identity, or we derive a sense of ourselves based on what we believe in and what we think is good or not good, right? So I value independence, right? I see myself as someone who's very autonomous. I see myself as someone who doesn't rely on others to get things done, right? So your self-concept and your personal identity as a person is highly linked to your values and what you appreciate or don't appreciate in life. Some things that could counter the impact of values, or that could kind of trump values from fully manifesting or fully affecting the way you go about behaving. Sometimes the situation could alter that, so some situations may not allow you to fully represent your values and act in ways that truly align with your values. Okay? Sometimes it could be some different motivational factors. So let's say you value honesty and integrity, but also somebody is bribing you with $1 million. And what are you going to do now? $1 million is really appealing, but you also value honesty and integrity. So that could be a counter motivational factor. You're getting motivated by the money of it. So you could be in a situation like that. And lastly, that's something that we mentioned a bit earlier. It's kind of your awareness of values. Not everybody is very much so in tune with what they value as people. Not everybody has that great level of self-awareness. So some people are just kind of like acting willy-nilly because they don't have a clear set of values fully set up or fully understood. And that is kind of also a bit of a disadvantage of values or a weakness of values in that they're very broad, they're very meta, they're very abstract. So that's just by virtue of what they are. And unfortunately, not everyone is in tune with their values, or not everyone could read their value system when it's very broad, or it could be ambiguous to them. So that could be something that could trump their manifestation. One concept that really substantiates why we give lots of attention to values and studying values in organizations is that concept of value congruence. Okay? And essentially value congruence refers to kind of like how similar are your values to the environment that you're operating within. Okay? And the environment that you're operating within, especially when it comes to the workplace, it consists of two key things. Okay? It's the organization that you come into every day to work, and also the people who work for that organization alongside you. Okay? So that's why when we're hiring, for example, a lot of the time we do make sure that we're assessing people for how well they fit within the organization, how much do they align with what we stand for as an organization, but also how likely are they to fit in and align with their coworkers, right? How likely are they to align with the team that they're being hired into? Do their values align? Okay? So let's say we're an organization who values sustainability. Are you someone who also values sustainability? Because if we value sustainability, then we want to see some behaviors from you that are sustainable behaviors, that are considered to be good for sustainability, to be good for planet Earth, right? So that is one avenue that we go down when we're looking for value congruence, especially when it comes to your organization. Is that person-organization fit or value congruence?
Would an organization ever look for someone that would have a differing value, just so they could sort of get a different perspective?
Like a devil's advocate who could help us improve? It would really depend on kind of the specific thing. It's like, imagine a hospital. Would they actually go for someone who's like, all about harming people? No, right? But what you might look for, if you're looking for a devil's advocate, is you might... Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it's for, like, let's say creative industries where you might look for people who also align with you on valuing creativity and change, right? So you might approach it in that way, right? So generally organizations always look for people who align with them to a great extent, who align with their mission. So an advertising agency, let's say they are all about generating creative content, they're going to want people who exhibit those values surrounding creativity and innovation, right? Generally, yeah. And even when we're looking for that diversity of opinion and diversity of thought, it could still fall in alignment, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's very rare to see kind of like a hospital saying, well, because we want a devil's advocate, we're going to hire someone who's all about harm. No, that's not really what we're wanting. Okay? So that is one way we look, or one avenue of value congruence that we look for, is how does the person fit with the organization and what the organization stands for. And then the other one is, how does the person fit within the team? Okay, so how do they get along with other people? If we're an innovative team, we're all about dabbling with new methodologies and new technology, we probably want someone who's also on board with that. Because if they're stuck in their ways from like 1997, it's not going to work for us. It's going to hold us back in getting our work done as a team. Okay, so those are two avenues where we see value congruence. And another concept that is highly linked to sorry, to go back to that subject, is that basically like what we talked about last week, how organizations are like an open system? Mm-hmm. Definitely relates to it, and that because organizations are always changing and having to respond to changes, they want people who also align with them on that. So if I value kind of resilience and adaptability to change, to dealing with change, I probably want people who also value that rigor and that innovation, right? Yeah. So it could inform that, for sure, by virtue of the open system. So yeah, another concept that relates to values quite a bit, and we study it in tandem, is the concept of ethics. And ethics are more of, as opposed to values, ethics are thought of as that systematic way of making decisions, and a systematic way of going about assessing whether something is good or bad. Okay, so whereas values are more general and they're more personal, I would say, and you get to decide as a person, how you're going to act in line with your values. Ethics or ethical codes, for example, offer us more of a framework, or offer us something that is more concrete, that will guide our behavior, as rooted in certain virtues and ethics and values. Okay, so that's why we think of it as something that is more systematic. It's a systematic way of thinking about how we go about behaving. It's a systematic way about assessing different options and different decisions. Okay, so that's the difference between ethics and values. Generally, when we're assessing the ethicality of a situation, or when we're assessing any situation for whether it's ethical or unethical, we consider three perspectives or principles, and those are the utilitarianism principle, the individual rights principle, and the distributive justice principle. Utilitarianism is you're looking for the greater good. You want something that will benefit the masses. You're going to opt for a decision that will generate the maximum good for everyone. Okay. Individual rights, you want to make sure that everybody has the same access to the same rights, so you value individual freedom. Okay. The controversial part of it is that sometimes your individual freedom could interfere on others' individual freedom, so that could be a negative there. And lastly, there's the distributive justice, which is we're kind of achieving that balance of benefits and burdens. Okay. So ultimately what we recommend is that you're drawing on the three principles. You're not just kind of opting for one. Okay? You're being more comprehensive and you're assessing the ethicality of a situation from different perspectives. So you value the greater good. That's where that utilitarian approach comes in. You consider the individual rights and freedoms of people, right? So you want to make sure that you're balanced in your approach when ethically assessing a certain situation of evil. Ethics are more specific, I would say, or more concrete, right? So an ethical code of conduct, right? An ethical code of conduct for how doctors behave or how doctors treat patients, right? Whereas values, you don't necessarily find like a chart. I mean, organizations sometimes dabble with that, and you have lots of like CEOs, like there's the CEO Ray Dalio, who's the CEO, he was the president or the founder of an investment firm, and he published this book. I forget what he called it, but it was like the Ray Dalio Manifesto on like what our organization appreciates. And those are usually a point of like it's controversial because it's like it seems like you're wanting us to drink the Kool-Aid in a sense. So as like some people try to kind of put it in a bit of a framework, but really no. Values are, I view them as very personal. It's an individual thing, and it could be derived from your experiences, your personal experience.
When we talk about ethics, it's almost not necessarily the same for everyone, but it's majority kind of known.
Not the same for everyone. I mean, like the ethical code of conduct for a doctor is definitely different from the ethical code of conduct for an accountant, right? Like accountants are driven by the generally accepted accounting principle, right? They're always following GAAP, okay? So you could say that that's kind of what's guiding their behavior in a sense. Doctors are following something else, and that's just based on occupations, right? As people, do we have an ethical code of conduct as humanity in general? That's why ethics and values and morality is such a gray area. Because some people see it as that, as it is black or white, and other people don't see it as that, and that's where the whole concept of relativism comes into it. It's a whole debate, right? But yeah, for our purposes, focus on kind of ethics are kind of that systematic way of assessing good or bad. Okay, usually things like code of conduct, those are our ethical decision. Okay. Now, things that could, generate more ethical conduct versus less ethical conduct, or some things that could motivate more ethical behavior, or render people more likely to act in an ethical way. We have the concept of moral intensity, and that is to say that some situations, they have a strong ethical component, or there is an ethical dilemma or a moral predicament that is truly prevalent in it, or truly highlighted or emphasized in it. Okay? So issues, let's say, like we were taking hospitals as an example, like euthanasia, for example, right? Assisted suicide. Those are situations that are high on moral intensity. the question is very emphasized in those types of situations, right? Whereas you may have other situations of like, let's say we're operating a cafeteria and like what food we offer to our clients, like beef or chicken, that's not a high moral intensity type situation. No.
What would be for serving?
If you're serving bad, yeah, like dangerous food, perhaps. Okay, yes? Yeah, I'm dumbing it down a bit, but yeah, you get it. Another thing that could influence ethical conduct or misconduct is moral sensitivity, and that's where some people are more in tune with the ethicality of situations, and other people are not. Some people truly are not kind of adept, or they don't have that ability to see how something could be unethical, or to see how something could cause harm to others. They just don't have it, they don't have that sensitivity or receptivity within them. Okay? So for example, people who rate high on Machiavellianism, or people who rate high on psychopathy, they tend to act in unethical ways more than people who rate lower in those traits. Okay? Because their moral sensitivity is just less. They're not in tune with that. Okay? And lastly, you have the situation. The situation will always affect how we conduct ourselves, okay, in organizations and in social contexts. Okay? So you have some countries, bribery works for them. It gets the work done. Okay? So those are some things that could dictate your ethical conduct or misconduct. Okay? In terms of things that we could do to promote ethical behavior in organizations, or things that could be more conducive to ethicality in the workplace, codes of ethics or codes of conduct. You have, you review that with your employees upon entering the organization. We have research that shows us that when employees actually physically sign a code of conduct or code of ethics, it does actually incentivize them to always consider the ethicality of decisions, and it does promote better behavior as it pertains to ethics. It's that tangible act of kind of putting your name next to something. Some situations or some occupations, assessing your employees on the ethicality dimension, making sure that they understand the ethical implications involved in their job. Like, for example, healthcare practitioners, you might assess them on the ethics piece. Nurses, psychiatrists. You want to make sure that you have within the infrastructure of your organization ways of helping employees voice if they saw something unethical going on, if their manager is advocating something unethical, doing something unethical, if they're fudging the numbers, okay, like we saw at Enron, for example, right? You want to make sure that you have within the infrastructure of your organization, you have avenues for employees to come forward and report ethical misconduct and wrongdoing, okay? And lastly, you have ethical culture and ethical leadership. So what is the leadership of the organization saying about ethicality? Are they fostering an ethical environment? Are they supporting employees in doing the right thing? Or are they overlooking so many things in the organization and allowing misconduct to come to view? Okay? So the culture of the organization also influences general ethicality or ethical behavior. Questions about ethics or values? Yeah, I believe this is it. So if you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, write them down. Otherwise, bring your name up here. Make sure it's